Hello everyone. Today I am talking about Patrick S. Tomlinson. Now, Rick is an author of sci-fi and fantasy novels and a self-proclaimed comedian, living in Milwaukee. At least that's what the back of his book says. He was well known for his books and seemingly very respected in his communities, until people found out he was very easily rage baited. Since then, he is now kind of the pet locale of, as you can guess by the name, the Patrick S. Tomlinson thread. I first heard of him through an online friend who sent me art by Nugget Figure on the Kiwi Farms. I don't have an account on the site, so I asked my friend more about this man, and they would send me videos and images of this specimen. And here's a short rundown of the things my friend really liked from this person. Getting prank called at a party for an hour before being called fat, saying he's gotten into many bar fights, and saying he has anger issues, and then also showing a picture of his wife with a black eye, getting divorced and his ex-wife, then marrying his best friend, getting his lawn furniture stolen and raging at the stalker child, and fighting cops that were falsely sent to his house by a stalker child. But my interest was way more in his books. Even with dyslexia, I still like reading, so I thought, why not force myself to get back into it? And why not start with his latest book, In the Black? The story starts with an introduction of Susan Kamla and her crew aboard her ship, the CCDF, and Sarah. That includes Miguel, her XO, Mata, the computer personnel, who's Indian, and Warner, her weapons specialist, and Nesbitt. Nesbitt is only useful for like one sentence in this whole story. In the beginning chapters as well, we also learn of the CEO of Ageless, the group that made the Faster Than Light travel. His name is Tyson. Susan and her crew check on two drones that have been destroyed recently and find out it was the Xera, a bug-like alien species with similar technology to humans. They plan to meet and try and capture the Xera, but they get away. After this event, Thuck talks with one of his crew members saying that High Command might be using him to instigate a war with humans. Back to Tyson, and he finds out his joint effort and project with another company, NeoSun, is trying to be sabotaged, and as he's eating out with his colleague, he finds that his waitress is a spy. And then later finds out from one of his doctors that a bacteria that has been ravaging one of his colony planets was actually a bioweapon. Susan is then forced into a meeting with the Planet They Protect's leader before her crew finds the Xera ship again, trying to bait them into free space without starting an all-out war. Susan does not fall for the bait, and Thuck's crew is confused, believing humans are not smart enough not to fall for the bait. This makes him angry, and Kevitz, his XO, basically tells him to chill out. This is one of the better parts of the book when they talk and gives us a little more backstory on the Xera. Tyson then finds out from his AI named Paris that the waitress that was the spy was found dead. This part of the story goes absolutely nowhere, but it does give us a little more insight to Tyson, so it is not completely useless, but literally this part about the dead waitress and spy goes nowhere. Back to Susan and her crew, they find the Xera oiler. They decide to use a meteorite to destroy the oiler, and it goes successful. However, the Xera and Thuck find out it was humans. This leads Thuck, Kevitz, and Herg, who is Kevitz's secret lover, to of course correctly assume it's humans, and decide to charge for the treaty line, to try and again bait them into fighting. But as the Xera try and execute this plan, their ship breaks down, leaving them afloat and bleeding radiation. Now, Susan, to her entire crew's dismay, decides to help them. We're on chapter 17 now, and in this chapter, Tyson is called back after talking with Elsa, his biotechnician, to his office, where he finds Paris in an android body trying to seduce him. However, he leaves quickly and heads to his apartment. After this, Tyson wakes up late and is called into the office of NeoSun, where he finds out the second Xera and human war that he believes has started, and that NeoSun has pulled out of their agreement. Back to the Xera, and as they're leaving, saying goodbye to the humans, they find out their ship was sabotaged by someone, and finally believe that the Xera as an entirety were trying to start a war, using them as a sacrifice. Back to Tyson, he is about to give a speech with Elsa before it's cut short as everyone finds out about the supposed second Xera and human war. He heads back to his office, Elsa leaves, and then all of a sudden he's nearly killed by Paris in her android body as he finds out she was hacked. However, he's saved by Elsa using her taser on the android's body. Tyson and Elsa escape down the elevator, and in the lobby they are attacked by one of the big mechs that are meant to protect the place, and then Reggie, the absolute GOAT, saves them with a rocket launcher. Back to Grendold, multiple CCDF ships try to make Susan surrender, and as she pretends to go into a life pod to get to them, it is blown up, allowing her ship that is now commandeered by Miguel to start firing at them. This makes the Xera ship turn around, and while Susan is out in a different escape pod, is able to capture another ship. Together, they knock out one of the smaller ships, but ultimately the bigger one is about to destroy Miguel's ship. However, the Xer decide to come around and help, and ultimately destroy the bigger ship with a special weapon. The story resolves with Thuck, his crew, Susan, and her crew, and her new warship that they commandeered during the fight, basically being pirates at this point, both cast away by their own respective species. However, Tyson does end up getting to the planet with Elsa and talks about how their problems are most likely aligned, how they need to get to Earth to find out whoever did this to them. Now that was a story summed up very quickly and very poorly, but now let's get into the finer details and problems of the book. A good 40% of the writing is technological history, and history that has no use or impact on the story whatsoever. This leads to a lot of items and tools just being world building and leaving me feeling stupid for even wondering what they could be used for later. Stuff like Susan's small idols in her room, the Xera inherent toughness, meaning they don't even need to have a spacesuit to go outside for a short period of time, the faster than light travel just being another tool even though a lot of thought is put into it, Nesbit's room being cluttered and flammable with expensive tables and golf clubs, Kevit's and Herg's relationship, Thuck's need to suppress his natural want to be a leader, the human's new weapon meant to destroy drones quietly never being brought up or used ever again. And finally, the waitress/spy used on Tyson being found dead and never brought up again after he sees her in the morgue. Some things do pay off though, as early Paris does want a android body showing she's been hacked for a while, the ship left in orbit due to the bacteria title being used for Tyson to smuggle himself off the planet without his company knowing, and finally Tyson's bodyguard Reggie destroying a mech to save Tyson and Elsa. Much of the interesting parts of the book are too short, like the Xera having queens originally, but after a revolt by the working class, all the Xera are somewhat all in charge and only have leaders who are there to be blamed if something is to go wrong. All this about the Xera history is only about 2 pages long and leaves us stuck with humans and movie-like dialogue that is not unbearable, but could easily fit into any modern soulless sci-fi movie. I found myself bored for most of it, only hoping to get back to Tyson or the Xera, and only turning off my music if I actually got interested or the writing was oddly written, so much so that I need to focus. I really can't understate how movie-like the writing is. It could so easily be some sort of millennial writer that they hired, hoping to get some new big thing, or just a movie that they're gonna money launder through, and they really don't care how it does in the box office. A couple more small things. A lot of the writing is almost virtue signaling, as the cast and crew is extremely diverse, with most of the people on board the Insera being female, 60% to be exact. Lesbians and people having sex on the ship is talked about a couple times, oddly, which has no real reason to be talked about, but I guess that's what Patrick Tomlinson likes. And finally, Patrick Tomlinson at the back of the book talks about how unrealistic Tyson of a character is. However, Tyson is one of the only interesting people in this book, so I have no idea why he would degrade him like that, as again, he is the only person I really cared to read about besides Thuck, but Thuck didn't get much writing or screen time in a sense, so thanks, Patrick. Thank you all for watching. I'd like to thank my friend, who will remain anonymous, and Nigget Figure, as my friend sent me all the images of Patrick Tomlinson you can see in this from them, as I believe they are the artist or just the person who posted the pictures on the QB Farms. Again, thank you all for watching. God bless. Have a good night. Goodbye.